Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at Libyan Civil War 2011. This is an interesting but complex game. When it says complex, it's because it's got a long timeline. For example, I could have just maybe done a much smaller, simpler one, Battle of Tripoli, which is a fairly major engagement. And also it starts off with protesters, so you can see we've got some protesters here. Now, I could have given them one offensive, which I think maybe I should have, but they don't have any defence, and they've only got a movement of 2, which makes them pretty difficult to move. Fortunately, there's no effect around here, there's no mountains or anything that they can't move into. And it's got an extended timeline, so you can sort of see, you get the protesters you can see there, then you get a few more on turn 3, turn 5, you start to get irregulars and insurgents. Turn 12, you start to get some sort of regular troops coming in, motorised units. Turn 13, some mechanised units, etc., etc. Now, the timeline is skewed to the sense that it's wholly abstract, in that I really can't model, the day-by-day activities because A, I don't know them, and B, it's like anything. Once you get one step out of sync, everything else will fall out of place. So things are sort of skewed to sort of represent roughly when things happened, and what we're really going to here is when whoever they were, the Western sort of nations under the United Nations, Bob, they basically come in 25 with their, essentially they launch a lot of cruise missiles, but I don't have cruise missiles. I will be putting some in. They basically just act as one-off airstrikes. It's not difficult to do, but I haven't done it yet. So all we've got are basically we've got US, UK, French, and special guest, whatever, Canadians with their CF-18 bullets. I don't know where else I've used, but we've got coming the Canadians, and I've never had any Canadians before. So that's when they arrive. So they arrive sort of, I don't know, they get 25 sorties. They arrive about turn 22, way beyond what I'm going to get through here. But so that's them, and then obviously there's a lot more that comes in because basically the troops sort of go after Tripoli. But what you have here again is sort of the Libyan police, but they get their air force on early. Now there's no air defence. Yeah, I've just realised I haven't considered that, but I don't think it's that much of a problem. But essentially they started to run out of quality jet fuel. So although they come on turn 6, well, the turn 7, for example, they only stay on for a maximum of 20 turns. Now, if you actually consider the spread of that, it gives them turn 20 to turn 25. They got 3 lots of aircraft, and then it will slowly peter down until they've only got. Then they'll only have 2. After turn 13, they'll only have 2. And then at turn 17 they'll only have 1, and then at turn 27 they won't have anything. So they've got a slight overlap between when they run out, which is turn 27, and when the Western forces come on. So there'd be 5 turns of both sides having air power, but at this point the air power will switch straight over to the Western nations. But there's still a lot of units on the table. Not that many really, but they're quite powerful units. And as I quite often say, I have absolutely no idea what the game balance in this is like, whether it will be silly or whether it will maybe create a satisfying simulation of the Libyan civil war. All of these are sort of places that were fairly important where there are battles. So there were battles in these 2 places, although these are basically really not that important. I haven't got any of the tribes in yet, just because, to be quite honest, I just, I'm pushed for time really, so I'm just glad to got this far. But there were some tribes, I haven't really considered them, so yeah, maybe this will do sort of coming back at some point. But anyway, I just want to do the first few turns, even if it's just really for my own understanding of what's happening. So essentially what we've got are protesters, and the reason I was going to give them one strength point is because then they can actually start basically taking the city, but at the moment they can't. So essentially the National Transitional Council with the National Transitional Council, National Transitional Council with their National Liberation Army, I should really call them. The anti-Gaddafi tribes I haven't put in, and I haven't done any of that. So anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're protesting, so there's not much that can be done. So end the turn. Now, this is sort of where it gets interesting, only in a small sense. Now, to start off with, we're playing with obviously the limited mechanisms of the war blog sort of platform. I can't have these and these in the same hex. Now, in theory, they should be in the same hex. You know, they're all sort of, they're protesting and they're both in there. Now, I could put them in there. I could start them in there. And it's an interesting thing to sort of bear in mind, because essentially there will be reinforcements and they will appear in places, and there could be already other units in there, and they can coexist. To the extent that, to sort of see how much that actually happens, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the first thing to do for the Libyans is to try and get rid of these protesters. And let's see what happens. Okay, so 7-to-1 odds, defender eliminated. So that was quite nice. And now, so they're taking the police have taken Benghazi back. These odds are not unexpected when you consider that they don't have any defence, so you're dividing by 0. The best that they can hope for, the defender eliminated. So I'm not saying this reflects what happened, but to some extent it reflects, you could view it reflects the harsh treatment of the police against the protesters. I mean, there were people that were killed. You'd really have to sort of look into the detail to actually fully understand how it actually panned out. But so we've got 3 defender eliminated. Again, I'm sort of experimenting with my own sort of perceptions and thoughts on how this is working. But that was, I would say, probably not unsurprising, and I don't think it is too unsurprising that they were all eliminated. But they can hang out, so they can get a defender retreat, so they're still in play, so they can still sort of slow units down. And these aren't only the police. So, but the thing is, I think things like that are sort of, so far what we've got is the first period, the first few days of the Libyan civil war, where the protesters were basically, moved on roughly. I don't want to say they were massacred, or anything like that, as this might sort of reflect. I mean, essentially, the police moved in, the protesters ran away. That's how to sort of, visualize this form of modelling. As I say, it's basically it's all sort of limited by what the game mechanics offer. So I don't think that's too sort of unrealistic. So then we've got the next turn, and well, obviously nothing happens. Now I did give a two turn grace period for the next sort of echelon of protesters to appear. Mainly because I didn't realise they'd all get eliminated. I thought maybe a couple of them would, but a couple of them, well, I thought maybe there would be something that had held out and would try to protest again. So clearly there's absolutely nothing to do in that turn. So the Libyan player has now reconquered everything. It's now the Libyan turn, and again they've got nothing to do, so they have spent the first turn cleaning things up. And now we've got the next turn, and again there's nothing that comes on here. I'm just going to have a quick look at my of the screen here. Well, we should get some more units on turn 3. So okay, so now what we can see is, and this is actually semi-based on the Wikipedia article. You know, it did say, I mean, if you don't want to spend too much time looking at this, but when you sort of look through the first part, it says, you know, protesters in Bayda, Derna, and Benghazi. Well, that is Derna, Bayda, and Benghazi. So that you know, reflects that. And then it says basically shortly after, I don't want to read it too much, but basically it does go on to the next steps. Interestingly enough, these protesters were clashing about housing and development, and the Libyan government responded to the housing unrest with a $20 billion investment fund to provide housing and development. It just seems so strange because I think Libya has always been famed for providing housing for its people. That these people protest, it gives them $20 billion euros investments to do that, and you know they overthrow it. I'm not a Gaddafi supporter because I don't know anything about it, but I'm always a bit suspect about how these things happen. You know, there you go. But anyway, so basically the next thing that sort of happens, I think, is down here. The protest unrest confrontations began in earnest, so that was the first bit. So there's a bit of a pause when disgruntled minorities protested in Zawiya, which essentially is just outside Tripoli. So instead of, because I can't put it in there, it's basically part of Tripoli. So these actually are appearing where they sort of appeared. I mean, I've done my best to sort of model how the time flow, time frame of the timeline, so to speak, of this Wikipedia article, which is linked in the on the main site. So now we have these insurgents over here, and obviously no police to challenge them. So they're probably going to sit around doing what insurgents do, and let's see what the Libyans do. Okay, well, they're obviously not doing anything, but maybe they could come around here. In actual fact, we shouldn't really have done that. We should have moved them, because it's now the National Transition Council, which is the rebels, basically. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And I think just to sort of maybe reiterate, one of the things I'm trying to do here is to sort of leverage a platform, not so much for education, because the other ones don't quite like that, but to sort of learn and understand how these things work. And I think already, what should be quite clear is that all the action is taking place in the north. You've got to remember, if you're like me and a Westerner, quite often don't have a clue even where Libya is, let alone the size of it, the scale of it. You might have thought that there was huge armies ploughing across the Libyan desert plains, fighting, and it all happened up here. So it started off over here. Well, this is what I'm learning from this basic simulation. I don't know how true this is, but it starts off here and spreads over here. Basically it all happens in the north. And I think that is true. There's only these couple of little places. So now it is the Libyan turn. And as you can see, we've now got some police responding to these insurgents over here, so I didn't get it completely wrong. And coming up to a 15-minute break, so I don't really want to start doing anything more other than just reiterate this is a complex scenario, and I think an incredibly interesting one and an important one to possibly pay a little more attention to and to get right. So, and I hope if you're interested in maybe learning about everything, not just this one, but in particular the Libyan Civil War 2011. You can sign up and give it a go. Okay, so we're in the early stages of the Civil War. The police have essentially quelled the rioting in the east, although to be quite honest, I doubt they actually did. We've got to assume maybe those protesters are somewhere else. But they have a new problem now over here, according to this simulation. And I think, yeah. Right, well, probably going to want to try and remove these units. Now let's see what happens. And these are not just protesters now. 1 to 2 odds, attacker retreats. Well, that's not very good for the police. So these are insurgents, and basically the bottom line there is that they get 1 defense. That was interesting because we've lost a police unit, so obviously it's decided that it can't retreat into sea and has eliminated itself. So there's a real problem. Well, seeing as there's trouble at mill, as we might say in Yorkshire, I can make 3 spaces. 2, 3, 2. The police forces are going to try and help. Now, these insurgents should now be able to take out these objectives, but in the first instance, now what we've got is insurgent activity here. They're going to attack that unit. There's only 1 unit in this and only 1 choice. The assault roll of 31, 89 capture roll versus chance of capture chance of 98. So the insurgent action failed but was not caught. That's because well, to be quite honest, I don't know. I'd have to look at the rules, but there's an assault roll, which is basically the chance of actually achieving damage against the target unit, and then there's a capture roll. So if you fail your assault, which they did, they actually have to determine whether or not they were caught, and they had to get over 98.4. So they didn't get caught, but they didn't succeed. I'm going to leave that as it is because I want to keep Tripoli. Let's see what happens. One little thing to just say, I've actually changed Tommy to Oruri, and for those who know some of the other stuff that's been done on the site recently, this has actually got probably 2 or 3 scenarios that focus on the action around the Oruri Strip and the battle between Chad and Libya, the Chad Civil War, and all those sorts of things. So once you start to get into all of this, you start seeing that each game is a jigsaw piece that sort of fits in with something else quite often. So we now have, and here we have a good example of what I was saying. We've got Libyan police in Benghazi there. So we got essentially an illegal presentation, but the thing is, it doesn't really matter. Now, it's a bit of a pain, but the way around that, or the thing to do, is you've got to move the units out and then come back in and attack. And it's a pain, but it's not okay. Yeah. It's a pain, but it's not the end of the world. Well, to make it easy, the police are going to leave the city and they're going to stand there. I don't think I can attack Benghazi. There's just too much. There's two lots of insurgents, so there's no more protesters. Two lots of insurgents and one lot of irregulars. Just as a mental note, I think I'll probably put a lot more protesters in just to give it that sort of flair. I think the protesters were too easily defeated. At least maybe give them 4 or 5 protesters at the start, so you can't remove them all in the first go. But then again, they wouldn't be where they were according to Wikipedia. But anyway, so we've got this situation now where the police really can't contend with essentially the promoted protesters, but the protesters are now evolved into both insurgents who will maybe, these are the people that would be throwing petrol bombs, which is what they were doing, actually causing real problems, real damage, as opposed to protesters that just shout a lot. And of course the irregulars, which are actually capable of fairly significant, relatively military action. So the police are not going to engage in that, but I think the thing to do here is to at least double that up. So that gives us a strategic defence from their southerly movement. So essentially, we are looking at a sort of east-west coastal scenario here. There's not a lot happening in the mainland, and so we're containing what's happening in Benghazi at the moment with the police. Over here, I don't think we can actually do anything, and so I'm not going to move them. So that's going to be that turn. So now we have I see, we do have protesters. Yeah, so I was slightly wrong. We've got some protesters over here, and we've also got some insurgents. The protesters and the insurgents don't have any direct attack capability. That's why these are still red. Over here, in a bit, these will go to sort of grey as we start to contest them. But I think, just for the hell of it, we're going to try and take this police unit out. Now this is interesting because these are protesters. Oh right, so we did actually get more protesters. We've got more protesters over here. I'll just show you this. So what we've got here is protesters, irregulars, and protesters, and then here we've got irregulars, insurgents, insurgents. So that was an irregular. So basically, this insurgent unit is going to attack this police unit. The insurgent action succeeded, causing 3 depressions against that unit. What I'm going to do here, hopefully I will be able to, so we've got another insurgent unit who's got some movement. So this insurgent unit is now going to attack these police units, in theory. Or not. I actually, yeah. So these ones are available, and these ones are not available. So basically, it's the next one down. So it's this one. These are available. The other lot aren't. That's why I couldn't move them. So now this is probably the first example of how the insurgents actually work. I can choose this one or this one. See, it's a slightly different form of combat. I'm not taking the whole stack, so I'm targeting this unit. It doesn't make any difference in this case, but it could be that one's, sort of unit that you'd want. Okay, so they rolled assault roll of 40, 16 capture roll versus a chance of 99, so they were not caught. The action failed, but they were not caught. So I can't remember how that all worked out, but I'm sure it's really clever. So now we want to use the irregulars against this unit. Now, the protesters are a bit of an odd unit, and seeing as they shouldn't really be in combat, so I have to put something in there so they can't be in combat. We're not going to use them. Let's see what these irregulars can do against this. So it should be a 4 to 1, possibly a little higher. 6 to 1 defender eliminated. So basically, the protesters are forming into insurgents and irregulars, and are actually, proving themselves to be fairly aggressive. That's the right word. Effective in this civil war. So obviously, Colonel Gaddafi is probably getting quite agitated now as the civil unrest is becoming more and more pronounced. As you can see now, we've got some air power, but I don't think we can use it on the first turn. First turn problem again and again. Yes, it's not appearing. I'll have to sort that out again. Okay, so I think again the police are just not going to do anything. And so now it's the National Transitional Council again. So we still don't have any objectives being taken over. So it could be that I need to actually specify that irregulars, etc., can actually do that. It's possible that it's only set up if infantry or if tanks or if this or if that, and basically the irregulars are not getting into that if loop. Not a big problem, a bit of a pain, that's why I do these test games. Well, considering that's the case, protesters, let's take this protest to Derna. Alright, let's just rewrite that. Just to maybe point out, there are a couple of insurgent units in here. I think what we'll find out is that they are used, the thing used for means they've got 4 more turns before they can come back into activity, so they can't do anything. The irregulars can. And just because I'm doing a live video, I wouldn't do this attack because it's probably a bit close. They're entrenched. It's going to be a 1 to 1 probably, maybe a 2 to 1. Probably a 1 to 1. And the defender retreats. So, there's a good die roll, but that's what this sort of stuff is all about. So they're well and truly trunching the place. Here we've got insurgents and protesters. I mean, just for the sake of artistic license, I think I'm going to move the protesters there and there, just to give me a bit more spread. Okay, so we've now got some Libyan fire air power. Coming up to another 15-minute break. But what's actually happened there, I moved these protesters to there and to there, and strangely enough, we've got some irregular units now appearing there and there, giving us quite a nice spread there. And I can't remember what was there, but now we've got protesters and regulars all over the place. So you can almost feel for Gaddafi really, and obviously these rebels are, this civil war is taking shape. But it's going to be another 15-minute break. Probably won't notice it, but I'll probably come back and play the next one. It's quite interesting. So in a bit. So what we have now is a situation where the protesters have essentially now risen up. As is sort of written here. I don't know, I'll start reading into that. But the police have lost control. So the police have routed. We had police losses. We had police vanishing into the sea, I think. Less said about that, the better. These police are just digging in. So, and clearly a lot of rebels. Well, now what we've got, I think, is the first hard hand of the Libyan regime fighting back, because they've only had police units up to now, but now they've got air power. Now only one of these will be active, and I think the first thing to do may be to take out some of these units. Let's see what effect this has. Attack. No result. Okay, well, no result on 3 to 1. These ones won't be able to fire. It's the first turn, so it's now the. I have to think of that. It's an easy way to actually. The National Transitional Council. I'll call them the NLA. Pretty much have control of everything. And they've actually even started now to take Benghazi city. As you can see, it's now blue. So they've pretty much succeeded in taking over Libya. I understand there's some airstrikes coming in. So we've got some people over there to take those units. Yeah. What have we got here? 2 lots of irregulars. So I think I'm going to put 1 lot of irregulars into Ajdabia. Not enough to spare over there. These insurgents are not available. These are going to stay in. These irregulars are going to stay in Benghazi to help get the odds over. And these insurgents are not available yet. These are protesters, irregulars. So we've got 2 lots of irregulars over here, which means we can afford to move one of them, perhaps along this road. No more movement. Now I don't want to commit these units to attack these because the odds are not good enough to be 1 to 1. So we'll end that turn. Okay, and now I always consider the term the Empire Strikes Back. As I say, I've not played this before, so I'm sort of reeling in, not so much surprised, but I knew sort of tentatively planned it. But now, all of a sudden, the protesters' hand doesn't look so great. And you have to remember that these are protesters that have evolved into insurgents and irregulars. They don't have any proper infantry units. You can also see that this unit has been created in that hex, so he's going to have to pretty much. It's a bit of a faffy thing because it's not ideal, but basically he's going to have to get out. I can't fight the unit in there. So he's, but once you get past these little things, it's not a big problem. But the point is, we now have the military out. obviously the protesters, the riots have pretty much reached their zenith, or Gaddafi's not putting up with it anymore, and here come the military. And I think one of the things to maybe look at or think about, well, just point out, is that they're actually pretty tough units, especially considering what we've got up against us. So I did sort of put these over here just sort of maybe because I figured, well, these places wouldn't be taken yet, just to avoid that sort of situation. But I think first thing possibly to do will be to let's just clear out these protesters. I'm not going to use my artillery against protesters. Okay, so we got rid of these protesters. Let's do a movement against these protesters now. And they're eliminated. So in a relatively short space of time, the picture here is changing. Now, just to sort of play the game, I think I'm going to move this motorized unit into an assaulter. Do they have any movement left? They still have movement. And I'm going to try and take out these irregular units here. Let's see what we can do here. I think I'm going to do the sanest thing and follow the road. Now, we want to head this way, or this way. I think I'm going to head along this way, because I'm going to guess that these units will be able to clear out all of these units. So I think the Libyans will be able to clear out these irregulars and insurgents that are sitting in Tripoli and the surrounding regions. Okay, well the artillery is sort of good where it is. I will move this one just a little bit that way. Let's see if we can take out these irregulars. Let's get the police involved with that, and why not put in some artillery? 4-1, defender retreats. Now, that's interesting, because one of the things to bear in mind is the irregulars, they generally retreat. They're quite hard to get. However, we can have another crack. And this time, I'm going to put in both lots of artillery, because they've got another unit in there, so it's going to be 3 in this. It's just to possibly give myself as good as odds as possible. 2-1 and then exchange. However, the insurgents fled. The irregulars held their ground without becoming depressed. But I didn't become depressed. Well, these units are depressed. No, I don't know. Have I got any movement left? That would be nice. Yes, I do. So I am going to take these hexes. I think he's got any movement now. No. Well, that's changing the picture. It just as a sort of a slight aside, I was looking at some, basically doing a Google search for images, just looking at hex maps, and I just thought they just look so fantastic. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm interested in this sort of thing. But I was looking at some maps, and they were just like this. No picture, maybe like this. Someone had written them in a blog. I think they're called AARs, After Action Reports. And there's arrows saying after this sort of action and something. I was looking at it thinking, that looks really interesting. I was trying to think, why does it look interesting? And I thought there were several things. Firstly, I don't know what's going on. I couldn't see a lot of the units because unlike these, which are quite clear deliberately for this purpose, you couldn't really figure out what their strengths were because there was so much information on each counter. It was like I think a vassal type game where it's actually a board game. They've just been using it to play a game. And I came to the conclusion that I did not know what was going on. I just had no idea. It just looked interesting. It looked interesting as a map, and it had counters on it. I couldn't see what was below the counters because it was a static image. So in this instance, I couldn't see. I couldn't flick through them like that. And it just struck me, they're just incredibly interesting. And also the videos. This is completely on a separate issue, but along the same lines of things to look at. I can go to sleep watching a video because things change, and you can sort of sit there half asleep, and you don't even have to listen to my stupid voice. You can just see things changing, the patterns. So I just thought I'd point that out because you can certainly see that this area is no longer dominated by the rebels, and we've got a sizable Libyan force to sort of deal with it. I'm still tempted to shift this armoured unit along this road. He's run out of movement now, so put some more armoured units down here. Which is interesting really, because we don't actually have anything over there. Just the police. So Benghazi has really fallen, and then it does sort of mention how Benghazi fell and how that was causing Gaddafi quite a lot of frustration. So we've got a fairly accurate timeline. We've got some movement as well. They're both irregular, so they're probably going to run away, but let's just at least try. Well, before we do anything like that, let's see what we can do with the Air Force. Well, that's nice. It's nice that we can get rid of these irregulars with the Air Force. There's some other damage we can do with the Air Force. Okay, well I'm going to use up the rest of this movement here then. What's their depression? Depression 3. So that air power caused them some depression. So I think whatever it is on that, defender eliminated. So the Iraqi army, the Libyan army, is now fighting back, and this is sort of what happened. The riots, the protests, all over the country, they're really having an effect. And then Gaddafi pulled out his army, and basically he would have he would have beaten the protesters back. There was nothing to stop him doing that. But then the international forces basically came in and swayed the balance of power. Okay, that's another 15-minute break, so let's see. Okay, this is going to be the last video for this little part of the game. Clearly not going to get to the end, but I think it's pretty interesting. We definitely have a huge number of NRA units in the east. I think a much firmer presence of the Libyans in the west. Clearly the southern areas are just not contested at the moment. It's the Libyan army. So they've sort of moved. What we didn't do is move this unit. Depressed. It's interesting. Let's see whether this A unit can take out this irregular unit. That should be pretty good. If I can remember to press the attack button. Yeah, I thought these strikes seemed to be pretty effective, so that was I got rid of that unit, giving me a little more flexibility here. So here what we're actually seeing is the firm actions of the Libyan army dealing with essentially the protesters in their more militant state. I think I'm going to leave him there because whichever way I go, the other unit can take it out. On this turn I'm going to wait. So it's now the rebel turn. Okay. Irregulars, irregulars, irregulars. Some insurgents. Insurgents, do what you do best. This is quite interesting, really. Well, the action failed. These insurgents are available because they're actually quite powerful. If we could have succeeded in that previous one and got 3 depressions, the insurgent action failed. To be quite honest, I think it's beginning to come back to me now. Basically, it's got something to do with the factors here. So because he's 7, I need over 70% or something like that, because he's quite a strong unit. You just sort of prevent. I think it's actually for every defensive factor, it's a -5. It's 5. So 7 5s is 35. So he's got to get over 35 to sort of affect that or something like that. I think I've written it down in the rules. But if I could have got some depressions on that, I could have maybe attacked it. But even if I attack it now, the best I could really hope for is going to be a 1-to-1. That is the sort of nature of the war, so to speak. So let's see whether we can do anything against this artillery. It might be a little easier to nobble. Failed. I think the base chance is 50, modified. Yeah, that's it. I think it's 50. So that would have been, I would have had to have got over 60 as a sort of roll, or under 40 as a roll to have got that. And similarly over here, I'd be trying to get 50% minus 35. I've only got a 15% chance of actually doing that. And then just in case you're unclear what insurgents do, insurgents are essentially placing car bombs, they're putting bombs in culverts in roads, they're actually laying ambushes, mountainsides or on army depots or on supply lines. They're doing these sort of secretive operations that cause damage, but the larger the unit, the more risk they have in actually getting caught and B, failing. So they're better off going against little units like this little unit here, but obviously I've failed on that as well. To put it into perspective, I'm going to move this insurgent unit into there, and I'm going to take out this, I'm going to try and carry out the same sort of thing, same insurgent activity as this police unit. It's relatively small, and it failed with an assault roll of -9. Okay. I don't know why that was. Oh, that's that. Okay, so now it's the Libyan army turn. Now, actually, we need to crush this rebellion. Let's see whether we can get some air power in here. Exchange. Well, that takes him down to 1. That takes him down to 9. Let's see. Seven to 1. 2. Probably wouldn't be able to make, but defender eliminated, which was nice. However, worth noting, I got a defender eliminated, but all that meant was he retreated with 1 fatigue, 1 depression. And that's because he's a regular. So they're one step up from insurgents who sit around in the house making bombs, dressed as civilians by day, snipers and ambushers by night. The irregulars are probably, they're probably very dispersed, no military formation, probably driving around in camels or motorbikes, getting around wherever they can. If they're routed, they agree to meet up somewhere else. They're like French partisans, really. They're very hard for a large military unit to kill, but they can't do much. So, this armed unit will probably chase this one around until we get that lucky die roll that actually kills it. But we managed to move them out of there. And here, the thing to do is to surround Benghazi. And retreat, which would have caused some depressions. So let's move this unit, this motorised unit, into there. Do we have any artillery? No. Okay. Push that button. Third time lucky. I'm not very good at clicking my mouse. 4-1 defender retreat. So essentially, again, he's just run away. I only really did that because I wanted to get into there. And I do want to at least try. Okay, let's use the police. Let's use the police to it's all going pear-shaped. I'll have to reload and you'll see what I've done. I moved my arm there. I didn't want to do that. Oh well, let's just see. I did it because you shouldn't really ever click backwards because it doesn't remember the state. It's JavaScript with Ajax. Anyway, so we got him. Oh, we got him, but he retreated there. Right. Okay, well, that's how it works. I'm going to go for him again. Defender eliminated. But he's still alive with depression 3. I've still got a little bit of movement, so I'll go for him again. This is interesting. Okay, I think I got him that time. Defender eliminated. Coming back to the game. Yeah. So what happened that time? Obviously, it would be great if I could actually do a video rewind here. It's maybe worth if you're watching some YouTube going back to actually watch what happened. I attacked him in there, and got I think a defender eliminated or a defender retreat. But because he's an irregular, as I say, small mobile bunch of bandits, he retreated to there. I attacked him again, and he got defender eliminated, I remember that, and he actually retreated because he was a regular, it didn't affect him. It gives him a lot more flexibility, but on the third time, I got him. And I think the odds are basically 75%. You've got a 75% chance of evading the detrimental combat result. Otherwise, you have to accept it. And so they're tough. That means they can move around, and that's what we got here. I mean, this is why those units exist, to model this type of insurgent, irregular type activity. But I don't think I want to commit myself to attacking there yet. I don't like this unit being down there, so let's see whether I can get rid of him with some air power. It's got 1 depression. Yep, I'm definitely not very good at clicking my mouse. Come on. It's sort of going round and round, waiting. It's still waiting. Oh, there you go, thank you. Generous. So now he's on depression 2. Do I have any movement left with this armored unit? Yes, just a little bit. So, now again, means let's use my artillery. I just use the armour. I want to combine it. It's time out. Okay, so we've got another 7 to 1, defender eliminated, but clearly the irregular unit retreated, which isn't that bad, but leaves it in the middle of nowhere. I don't really need that much. Just for the hell of it, I'll put in some artillery, so hopefully this will be a 7 to 1. Huh. 3 to 1 with a terrible die roll. That's what happens when you don't think as much as you should. Not depressed. Not depressed. Okay, well, that's bizarre. All these units couldn't do it, but this little artillery piece just routed it. There's some movement left as well, I think you can do that. Nope. I'll use some artillery on this little guy as well. Let's just go for the full assault. Worst die roll on the planet, so I think that's the Libyans done. They haven't done as well as they could do, but the pattern is changing, having moved out all the protesters and irregulars and insurgents from around the Tripoli area. I think this is historically more their strong point. Fall of Benghazi was something that was, I think, key. Obviously push these irregulars back. They haven't managed to do much against these units. They hurt themselves against those units. This is relatively uncontested, so let's see what happens. It's working. Nothing changed. I can see, but it's the NRA's turn now. And just to recap, they have clearly contested now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 towns. They have an opportunity here to take out this artillery. So this first unit is engineering or is he? Oh, he's used. Yeah, that's right, can't do anything with that. Well, we've got some irregulars. It might be a 1 to 1, but that's what they do. This is a civil war, a rebellion. I've got to take these difficult odds. 1-to-1. It's going round and round and round. Come on, let me know I'm recording. Oh look, 1-to-1. Good die roll. Defender retreat. So, the irregulars have assaulted the Libyan artillery unit. This could be an opportunity. The thing is, the reason it's not so much the reason it's slow, but it's slow at the moment. And I think the reason it's slow is not because of the server. It's my laptop. Once it gets to a certain stage, it just sort of starts using up huge amounts of resources, and I have to reload. I use Firefox. I've been using Firefox for years, and I've got an oldish laptop now, so let's keep things as they are. But it's the browser that's slowing it down. So if you're having these problems, it's always worth checking your browser. Going after the artillery again. 1-to-1 before. Is it going to be a 1-to-1? Probably again it will be. Well, you can't win them all. Where I succeeded the first time, I failed the second. Now here, got insurgents, but they can't do anything. So essentially, the civil war is going badly for the rebels. Well, I think I've got an opportunity here to take out some police units. Just going slowly. Well, that failed. The only way I can speed it up is by shutting my browser down and reopening it. I don't want to do that in the video. This is going to be the last video. I'm going to go to the sleeping state for a while. Okay. So we've got some irregulars there. Well, we've got to do what we do. Irregulars. Try and take out this police unit. An exchange. Everyone else is going to stay as they are. This is obviously only protesters, so they can't take the town. These are irregulars which are taking the town. So I think the Libyan army is going to take control of Libya again. I think, it might be just my imagination, but I think we've just increased this stack slightly, or is it just me? I don't know. Well, I think we've pretty much got Tripoli in the bag. I've had some embarrassing moments with his artillery. really need to clear out all of this stuff. The real way to do it is to surround them. However, it's a better opportunity here. Let's see what I can do with some air power. No result. Okay, well I do want to get a result, so I'm going to do it again. I'm trying to remind myself that the air power is quite valuable. Okay, defender retreat. So that's giving them 3 depressions. We didn't need to do that actually. I'm tired, so. It's worth 2, it's probably worth 4. So, putting, right, calculate that. Let's put them all in there. 5 to 1, so that wasn't brilliant. Now I got the defender eliminated, but because he was surrounded, he probably couldn't retreat, and that's probably why he's been eliminated. So that's the way to do it. But I cleaned Miss Ratter out, which means that I can now focus on trying to do similar things over here. I'm really not sure I need to sort of do it quite like this. I'm sort of not thinking. That much. Seven to 1 defender eliminated, which has caused them to retreat in this direction. Let's see what the artillery can do. Three to 1 defender retreat. Oh, that's what artillery does to you. Let's do it again. 3 to 1 defender retreat. That's forced him a long way out of Tripoli. He's in depressions too. So now we've well and truly secured this area. He's not going to counter-attack. He's not going to come back too quickly this turn. I don't really want to be attacking Benghazi yet. I'm still weak over in this area. Use this air power here. DR. Depression 7. Okay, I think I'm going to use my armour to chase him. I've only got 30 seconds left. I'm not doing any more videos. One of the issues I've got with being the creator of all this is it's not defender eliminated. got him as well. Yeah. Okay, I'll speak to you later.